Well, welcome to the Captain Good podcast. Tuesday, June 4th edition. Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks, and the other day, I have a few podcasts I follow. And the other day, one of the podcasts that hadn't been updating frequently updated, and I was going on a walk and saw it and got all excited. And I feel like that could be our podcast for someone today. Someone's going to be like, oh, good. All right. I'm going to.
Yeah, we've been doing a little traveling, and so we've been a little hit or miss on the podcast. But we're back, and
I don't know if are we even going to be able to fill an hour with conversation today? Is there anything to talk about at all?
Is there anything in politics happening?
I have some deep convictions I would like to share with you. 34 of them. 34
Oh, yeah.
About my wife and I dance each night. A while back, we decided to have a little dance. We pick a song and then dance each night. And I usually pick. Sometimes she picks. And the other night, on Conviction Day, I picked Jailhouse Rock, and we giggled for 2.5 minutes. Which is not the response I wanted to have to a former president of the United States being convicted for his crimes. I wanted a greater level of solemnity and seriousness, but somehow I just felt elated.
Yeah, he can't. Yeah, he undermines the solemnity with his absolute buffoonery.
Wow. He undermines the solemnity with his absolute buffoonery.
Tweet that.
I can say that.
With great solemnity.
I say this with great solemnity. He's about to lose the blessing of God. Okay, so obviously we will speak about.
Oh, yeah. Just speaking about the hilarity of it. Twitter was made for times like this.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
I mean, you both know that I sat on my back porch after dinner, and all the chores were done. I sat on my back porch and I lit a Victory cigar because I felt that was appropriate. Poured myself a as opposed to the non-Victory cigar I would have smoked
Just
otherwise.
Your regular daily cigar.
Yeah, oh yeah, but I dubbed it my Victory cigar. Poured myself a glass of whiskey, which I don't normally do, and
whiskey.
You know that's not a usual weeknight thing for me. But poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat down and just scrolled Twitter, and everything that made me laugh I put in the group chat to the two of you and a couple other friends, and probably to the point of annoyance, but man, it was just the best. Just people are so hilarious. It's just people are funny.
There was, unfortunately, in the version of the iPhone that I have, there is mute notifications, so it's fine. Just keep them rolling, because then you can go back.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there's a little thing. So don't worry. I mean, just keep them rolling. And yes, and Twitter, of all the platforms, I'm glad it's still around because it really is best for this. You know,
whenever Twitter is at its best is when everyone is paying attention to the same thing. That's when it's at its best.
So imagine how dark Truth Social must have been, because there could have been no comedy on the little, the monkeys version of Twitter that is Truth Social.
Now, you mentioned Truth Social. Have you seen this document that has come out about
the jurors?
The media consumption of the jurors?
Yes.
Fascinating. For all of the people that say that, he couldn't get a fair trial in New York, jurors were asked about their media consumption. And one of the 12 jurors marked on this page that their primary media consumption, where they got their news, was X, Twitter, and Truth Social.
Huh.
Not CNN, not Fox News, not PBS or NPR, New York Times, Truth Social.
Truth Social. And
Their
chose to
primary
convict
news source.
Trump on 34 counts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So apparently, people on Truth Social also can follow the law. That's a little shocking.
Yeah.
To hear it.
Or the evidence is just so overwhelming.
They're like, yeah.
Like,
Well, and it wasn't just because of testimony. They had testimony, and you could say, well, these aren't trustworthy people, and you would probably be correct when it comes to Michael Cohen, who, also convicted of crimes. But then it's just a bunch of documents. It's in print with signatures.
Yeah.
This isn't a matter of he said, she said.
Yeah,
it's just there in writing.
Yes, it's like I'm gonna do the math here on how much this is gonna be per month. Like, and you have the canceled checks of that amount per month, huh?
The thing that's a little shocking is Donald Trump actually fulfilled his commitments that he wrote on those little pieces of paper. That's the part that's really, he's probably kicking himself thinking, I should have done on this what I've done in all the other situations like this, which
Not
is to
paid
fraud the person. Yes, of course. This is why he's got to be saying to himself, this is why I defraud people. Because if not, you're just going to get in bigger trouble.
Yeah.
The least amount of trouble you can get into is to defraud somebody. Hey, 86 degrees forecast, clear skies in Minneapolis till storms come in today. Rob, squirreled away outside Fayetteville, Arkansas somewhere. What's the weather looking like there?
81 overcast, probably going to get more rain. It feels like it has rained every day. And since we last talked, there were tornadoes that came through Northwest Arkansas, and still recovering here. Damage really significant. 8 people died, and just really, really bad, especially a little bit north of us. Thankfully, we were okay, but we as Dan mentioned, we were traveling, and to be away and to see people friends on social media like posting about their homes being destroyed was a little rough. Wow. And then being back and seeing it is just significant stuff.
Dan, how about over there in Michigan? Everybody staying safe, or is it?
Yeah, it's storm season. We'll probably have some coming through, but right now it's just hot and muggy, which is like just preparing for summer where it's hot and muggy all the time.
Totally. Hey, dark clouds over democracy in light of the fact that Trump's conviction is not moving, high percentages of people away from their purported small percentages, little small movements, but not huge ones. That is just, truly.
I have been waiting for this podcast to say this. I'm about to come with my hot take, though I'm not sure it's a hot take, but hot take. We still have Doug. You want? Thank you. I don't know, Dan, if you've been around since we had the hot take sound effect. It's more like a record scratch, but whatever.
That's pretty cool, guys.
This is what happens when producer Dan takes a hiatus.
Literally, it's right there.
One of the questions that we have asked ourselves, and that in our work with Vote Common Good, we have been asked more than any other, is what's it going to take for people to abandon Donald Trump? Mm-hmm. Christians in particular. But why do these people support him? What's it going to take? And one of we used to say, we don't know. We don't know. We thought it would be, this is going to be the thing. This is going to be the thing. Over and over and over again, it hasn't been the thing. And what we have learned is a couple of things. One, that this cult-like behavior causes people to double down when they're in these situations where their faith is tested. And this being their faith in Donald Trump is tested, it causes them to double down rather than abandon it. However, That's with the vast majority. However, what we have seen is that there have been, throughout Donald Trump's political career here, uh, there have been inflection points that have caused um, not huge numbers, but also not insignificant numbers of his supporters to um, stop supporting him, to question themselves, to that if as I describe it, sending some people into a political identity crisis. Those inflection points that we've seen, both anecdotally and through polling that we've done, have been things like Donald Trump being elected president was an inflection point.
Good
Um,
one.
Kids in cages was an inflection point. January 6th was an inflection point. The Dobbs decision was an inflection point. And now the conviction of Donald Trump is a new inflection point.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the type of thing that is going to cause Donald Trump not to be the Republican nominee. It's not going to pull away, 80% of his support. It's not going to be we're not going to have a Barry Goldwater walking to the White House to have a conversation with Richard Nixon moment. Like, none of that's going to happen. But what we've had is at these inflection points, groups of people saying, yeah, that's the bridge too far.
Yep.
And the accumulation of these makes it so that Donald Trump cannot win the election. And at this point, we'd say, like, listen, he's a convict. He's a convicted felon. He cannot be your nominee for president. And 93% of Republicans are going to say, yeah, he can.
Yeah.
But 7%, and that's the polling right now, is that this decision will cause 7% of Trump supporters to reconsider their support of Donald Trump. It doesn't sound like a lot. It's disgusting for many of us who think like it ought to cause 100% of people to finally do this. But that 7%, coupled with the 3% who pulled away at the Dobbs decision, coupled with the 6% who pulled away over January 6th, like, his support continues to erode to the point that he cannot win. He's not going to be able to win. And so
his margins were razor thin to begin with.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I know there's a lot of people kind of wringing their hands over the political implications of this, but I just want to say, like, listen, like, let not your heart be troubled. Like, we're like, this is good political news.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people want is for the Republican apparatus to say we cannot move forward with Donald Trump. Right? That's the thing. And a lot of people, and I had hoped that Donald Trump would come to the conclusion too that to save himself, he'd need to strike a deal. He's just banking. I don't know. He's just a fool. The man is just a fool. Because no matter what the sentence is on July 11th, it's not going to be a good thing. When your hope is, well, maybe the judge won't sentence me to incarceration at the state penitentiary. When that's your, when you somehow have whittled down, I'm going to be the chief passenger in Air Force One to the judge likely will not put me in a cell in Rikers Island. That is a far cry from classy guy. Right. And the fact that so many people in the apparatus of the Republican system are choosing to condemn the justice system's actions here is really truly disturbing.
Yeah.
And to call this a political prosecution is just something else. Like for Republicans who are going to continue to hold the law and order moniker for themselves, to not support law and order when it comes to the January 6th prosecutions, to not support it when it comes to state charges against a person for actions that they committed before and during the presidency, is really quite stunning. And that's where I think the sadness for a lot of us comes in, is you would hope, because look, the Justice Department at state levels and at federal levels are prosecuting politicians and people related to politics at a pretty high level. You've got a Democratic senator being charged with crimes, Pennsylvania related and federal crimes. You've got Hunter Biden being charged, the son of the sitting president, and in court today or yesterday. You have a congressman, Democratic congressman, who's being charged with crimes. Like, this happens. Politicians and people related to politicians commit crimes. Donald Trump has been committing them since before he was a politician. The idea that you should be choosing to not prosecute Donald Trump because he's a politician, I know this is logic to a lot of us and not to others, is the very definition of being political about the whole thing, right? Like,
right.
That's what makes it political, is when you would say, hey, prosecutors, don't bring charges against this person because of the role that they've played previously and the role that they want to play now. It's really quite sad. And to watch as Alex puts in the chat, to watch the senators from Florida and the governor from Florida and the Speaker of the House for the House of Representatives, Federal House of Representatives, all be out banging on the justice system is really, really quite something. Because apparently they're going to do this on all the charges. They will do it on Georgia. They will do it on January 6th case, and they will do it on the documents stealing case. They're going to continue to just attack the justice system simply because it's going to bring its weight to bear on Donald Trump. That's the only reason they're bothered by this, is because none of them have said, less that I've heard, they have not said Trump didn't do these actions. They didn't even say the actions he did weren't crimes. They said he shouldn't have been prosecuted for them. That's stunning when your argument is, I did it, but you shouldn't have prosecuted me for it. And look, we do have a system in this country by which when the president does things and they're the sitting president, they're not prosecuted until later. And for Mitch McConnell to say he can be prosecuted for crimes that he committed, said this related to January 6th, after he's out of office, and then when he is prosecuted for crimes that he committed, he attacks the justice system, Mitch McConnell. So it's just really, that's the part, Rob. It's just sad.
It's a page right out of the Republican playbook too. The Trump playbook is, when things don't go your way, it's rigged against you. There's no way that I could lose if this was a fair fight.
Right.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Rob?
Patrick's Time just chimed in the chat. And Doug, I'd like to maybe put this question to you. Patrick's Time says, what is the crime Trump broke? Which, I mean, grammatically, what Patrick's Time is meaning to say is, what is the law Trump broke, or what is the crime Trump committed? Because a crime isn't something you break. But anyways, would you like to describe, because apparently Patrick's Time doesn't, much like Donald Trump, who claims that he couldn't even understand the charges against him. You want to go ahead and explain what the charges were?
And I do think he didn't understand the charges that were against him. He committed fraud, business level fraud. He filed fraudulent documents related to his business that had to do with expenditures in the intention of covering up crimes related to financing his campaign. He committed multiple actions that were joined together to become crimes. the fraud that he committed on business forms were intended to cover up the payments that he was making for actions that benefited his campaign. Those actions that benefited his campaign should have been declared as campaign donations.
Yes.
When you cover up donations to a campaign, one of the things the country takes seriously are our campaign finance laws. They're not campaign finance suggestions. They're not top tips for how to have a great campaign. They are laws that you have to abide by. Donald Trump knew that the benefit to covering up the Stormy Daniels affair was going to benefit his campaign. They talked about it. He talked about it. Michael Cohen then took out a loan against his own house to pay Stormy Daniels, and Donald Trump then paid him back out of the business and out of his personal affairs, and then lied about those payments on business forms for the taxes that he chose. Had he chosen to not put that on business forms, if he'd just chosen to pay it himself, if Donald Trump had said, I'm just going to pay Stormy Daniels money so she doesn't talk about the sexual affair that we had, okay, you get to do that. But when you put together a complex scheme that involves businesses like the National Enquirer and your attorney and your accountant, and all of you work to cover that up, that's fraud. That's what he's convicted of. Maybe I've missed something. And he did it.
Well, I'll tell you the thing you missed.
Forms.
The thing that you missed, Doug, is the conspiracy component of this, because it was done in concert with other people, Michael Cohen and David Pecker. And so it's not just that he committed fraud all by himself, but he was a part of a conspiracy to commit fraud. And,
they decided they would behave in a way to not tell the truth on business tax forms so that the people who enforce the people who enforce business laws and campaign finance laws would not know what they were doing with the money.
Yes.
That's what he did. And truly, I think there's a lot of people who think, well, that shouldn't have been a crime. That's
a different question.
People don't really want to go down. This is where Republicans are going down. Like, hey, this campaign finance thing, these shouldn't be crimes. That is the subtext to an awful lot of Republican talking points is, oh, come on. None of us really think that, like, just lying about how your campaign is funded, that's not actually a crime. This is the root of it. They truly don't care about campaign finance laws.
Listen,
they really want them to be gone. So when Trump is convicted of something related to crimes that they think shouldn't even be crimes, it's extra painful for them.
In 2019, there is a lawyer in Washington, D.C. who files frivolous complaints with the FEC against progressive candidates and organizations in an attempt to, kind of muddle them in just legal wranglings and distract them from what they're doing. I can't remember his name right now. In 2019, I was named in one of those frivolous FEC complaints. And the Federal Election Commission opened an investigation. And me and a number of other people, this made news. I mean, it was in New York Times and other places. Had to engage a lawyer to handle all of this. It was a big, scary ordeal. Because these things are laws. Like you can't just, and what we were being accused of was a complete and utter misunderstanding, and we were completely exonerated. It was a witch hunt. There was, no crime committed.
Was a witch hunt.
It was election interference, complete exoneration. But but all that to say, like, you're absolutely right, Doug, that like campaign finance laws are not suggestions; they're laws.
It was.
And this week, an organization I work with sent a text on behalf of a candidate urging people to donate to his campaign. You know what we have to do? I have to write a letter and declare an in-kind contribution for the amount of money that we spent for that to send that text. I mean, it's a small amount. It was like $400, I think, to send this text. But we have to report that. I have to send a letter to his campaign. And when his campaign files their FEC filings, they have to say, this organization, had an in-kind donation to my campaign in the amount of $400. All of it has to be reported.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump has to report all of this stuff. And when he doesn't and fraudulently files other documents hiding these expenditures, covering them up from the people in the state of New York, he is committing a crime.
Yeah. And this is the problem when you surround yourself with lawyers and fixers and people who regularly do commit crimes. They're going to keep committing crimes on your behalf. Patrick says, being extorted by a criminal lawyer and a porn star is not illegal. He hired the criminal lawyer and worked with him. He's not the victim
he hired
here.
The porn star, too.
I mean, this is right. This is the problem, right? For people who think that
because a regular campaign would have a person whose job it is to make sure all the forms are filled out, all the letters are sent, all the T's are crossed.
And I just let me ask this question. And just hit me with a yes or no on this. Doug and Dan, if Hunter Biden is convicted of the gun crimes that he is accused of, that he's now on trial for, are you going to say, he probably did it if a jury of his peers convicted him, or are you going to say, oh, this is a political witch hunt?
Well, I'm going to talk about the Second Amendment rights that are being infringed upon because Hunter Biden should be able to get a gun whenever he wants.
Yeah,
that's sarcasm. That's heavy sarcasm. If you're
but we're not going to criticize the. We're not going to criticize the. When Bob Menendez, the Democratic senator from New Jersey, is convicted for, I don't know. I haven't been following it closely. All I know is he's got gold bars in his closet. That feels illegal to me.
Bribes from Egypt and other countries to do their bidding. Yes.
When he's convicted of that, what's your attitude going to be?
That the justice system has just become a kangaroo court, and this is a shithole country, and none of it should live here any longer.
But this
is not a partisan thing for anybody but the Trump supporting Republicans. They're the ones who want to cry and moan about this being a political witch hunt, while at the same time those of us that oppose Donald Trump would say about the conviction of any Democratic person who is convicted, we would say, well, do the crime, do the time.
Yeah. And that does seem to be the difference between people who are in love with Trump and people who vote Democrat. Seems like people on the left are like, yeah, I'm voting for this person. That doesn't mean I'm putting them on a pedestal and, putting them up there next to Jesus. As I've seen a lot of memes and like comments like they convicted Jesus of crimes he didn't commit to. Like no one's doing that for Joe Biden for anything. If Joe Biden commits some crimes, we're like, all right, he should pay for those crimes. But when it's Trump, it's just it's a personal attack on them.
And Patrick, time in the chat makes an argument that a lot of people are making, which is all of a sudden they know an awful lot about how charges are brought at the state level, seemingly. We took misdemeanors and then elevated them up to a felony. Yes, that's what prosecutors do when they find out that someone has committed a series of actions that are at one level of crime in order to commit an other crime. When you stack your crimes, like if you rob a bank and you do it with a gun versus without a gun, it is leveled up to another level of crime. Donald Trump's series of misdemeanor crimes were intended to commit another crime, which is how the law works when you're charging repeated criminals. This case was opened under the Jeff Sessions-led Justice Department. Michael Cohen was charged with the crimes that he committed on behalf of and at the direction of individual number one, Donald Trump, and then went to jail while Donald Trump was president and while the Trump Justice Department prosecuted him. So the idea that then after Trump is out of office, he is now charged. He would have been charged with these crimes had he not been busy fulfilling the obligation the American people gave him by him winning the election in 2016. So they waited and then had to charge him later under a different administration. The crimes were committed, the crimes were investigated, and the initial prosecution was started under a different Justice Department. And yet, it all is a conspiracy from the state level and jurors and prosecutors and all the rest. And this idea that people say, well, Prosecutor Bragg said that he was going to prosecute Donald Trump when he was running for office. As long as we choose to have state prosecutors be elected officials, you're going to have people having to answer questions. What would you do about this case? You have to answer those questions. Would you or would you not pursue this kind of case? Bragg said very clearly, I totally would pursue the case that the federal government brought against Michael Cohen at the state level in New York from what I have seen. And if the crimes that were alleged were actually committed, I would seek a prosecution. That's exactly what someone should say when they're running for the elected position of being a prosecutor. So all of this stuff, again, is either not understanding how the United States justice system works, or disagreeing with it, or not caring about it. There's probably a fourth or fifth option, but my guess is it falls into one of those three.
Yeah, and Alex says,
don't care or disagree.
If anything, this case, as with the others, have been slow walked in Trump's favor. He was given special treatment that none of us would have been given. He was in contempt of court like 10 times. Like any normal person would have had consequences for that.
Yeah.
And you know what any normal person would have done if we could just focus in on the trial for a minute? Put up a defense.
Oh, seriously.
Actually said, hey, you just brought up all these charges. You brought up all these witnesses. You would literally defend yourself. Donald Trump didn't, because his lawyers and he did not believe there was a defense.
So yes. No. What did you see his lawyer on CNN talking about how there was fear that if Donald Trump took the stand in his own defense, that then the government might prosecute him for perjury. Like, well, there's a solution to this.
Yes.
Tell the truth.
And ask for his advice on this one. Yeah.
How do you not
commit perjury when you're under oath?
I don't want to go under oath because then
it's
they'll
a trap.
For perjury.
Yeah.
It's entrapment.
Yeah.
Come on.
But I will say, any decent attorney is going to say, if you believe that the government is coming after you, they're going to try to find some way to cause you to, commit perjury. Fair enough. If your only defense is putting Donald Trump on the stand, you don't have any other defenses. You couldn't call Alan Weisselberg, your accountant, out of prison for the crimes he committed on behalf of your organization in other crimes that he committed. You couldn't bring him out of jail to testify in your behalf that you were not intending to cover up payments. You were not falsifying business records. You were not doing this in a conspiracy in order to conceal. You couldn't bring that guy out of jail so that he.
For the very least, just give him the day off. Like, the very least, just give him the day off. Listen, we don't have any serious questions to ask you, but we're gonna put you on the stand just so you can get out of that prison for a day. Like, give the guy, come on, do the guy a solid.
Yeah, just call him as a witness and say, Alan, how you doing in there? And any advice for Donald in case he ends up in a cell next to you? Because
let's make some. Oh my heart, Patrick's time. I'm going to stop responding to Patrick's time because
the other crime was covering up the payments that were received on behalf of the campaign.
Yes.
And it's not a novel legal theory. It happens every day.
Okay. So let's do your own research, Patrick's time.
I would love to get back to the Republican response to this, and some of it is expected. Do you have a before we get into that, Rob?
I just while we're still sitting with the trial itself, and looking, I just want to look forward to July 11th, which I'm really looking forward to.
You'd be disappointed.
Predictions on sentencing
and walking along a highway in New York picking up trash, and then all that
predictions on
slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
Don't do that again. Maybe a fine that means nothing.
Doug,
what's that?
What's your prediction?
My prediction is that he's going to be put on some version of limited action and travel somehow. He's going to have community service that he has to perform. That they will allow the campaign activities to serve as community service. And he will pay a fine.
Well, he won't pay the fine, but
because
I'm going to go big.
To pay $84 million for defaming the woman that he sexually assaulted. He's broke.
Ooh. Apologize for that. I'm right now getting a phone call.
Yeah. Who calls people these days?
I got a call from Russia the other day, and it literally said Russia on the caller ID.
We were driving, right?
Yeah, we were driving. It said Russia. And it was a Trump campaign ad. It was just unbelievable.
Oh, fantastic! I'm gonna go big. I think he's getting jail time.
Really?
Oh. Deferred, or do you think they're gonna?
I think he's getting jailed. I'm not sure about that, but I think he's getting jail time because he's shown no remorse. He has violated the gag order 10 times and been held in contempt of court 10 times. And this judge strikes me as the kind of judge who would want to send a message. Like, we talk about how our criminal justice system serves both to be punitive and also to be preventative of other crimes. And we've got this idea, whether it works or not, it remains to be seen. I don't think it does, but we've got this idea that crimes that are committed, sentences that are handed out become deterrents to other criminals for committing the same crimes. Like you see someone else commit a crime and they get punished, and you're like, well, I don't want that punishment, so I'm not going to do that crime. And now, I don't think it actually works, but that's part of the thing that we tell ourselves about our justice system. I think that there's going to be some sense from this judge of wanting to send a message to politicians. I think he's getting jail time.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot, but I think he is.
So here's my question. Does he deserve that? Probably. Is it good for America? I don't know. I just feel like it feeds the martyr complex of the Trump base. And
yeah, at some level, I'm not sure I care. Like, I mean, that becomes like do we not give him the punishment he deserves because his supporters are going to throw a hissy fit about it? Like that?
Well, I mean, here's the problem with the punish someone so that you influence other people's behavior argument.
Yeah.
Which
Sure.
You're making, and I'm not saying it's yours. It is what we do in this country. We do say it's
I don't think it works, but it's what we do.
And it's also restorative. It's supposed to be those three in some balance. So anytime a judge is giving a sentence with the intention of other people responding to that sentence by some behavior, once you're playing that game, then I think what Dan's bringing up is important. Okay, if that's what we're doing, then you have to take in not only how will it stop other criminals, but does it say to the American people the thing you want it to say about this crime? Because this whole like it's like spanking a kid so that the other kids in the family see what would happen is a really bad idea for spanking kids. Spanking kids is a bad idea. And you sure shouldn't do it so that somebody else, has their mirror neurons turned on and gets freaked out by it. That's a super bad idea. So if you're going to play this game, and if the judge is going to somehow say, I want other people to see this and therefore have their behaviors affected, well, then you've got a lot of things to take into consideration. I have long held it's not appropriate for former presidents of the United States to be incarcerated. It's just now Donald Trump pushes that because he just continues to commit crimes. Now, again, this crime that he committed was the earliest one related to his political life. Then he has 3 others that have come during his presidency and after. So he is really challenging whether someone should be granted some level of diplomatic freedoms because of the role that they've played. Because judges do this all the time based on who a person is, what they've done. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into the human element of sentencing. So, I just think
as it should be, like
as it should. I don't know,
like statutory punishments, like have been a horrible thing for like. We need to let judges be judges and leave the legislature out of it.
Yes, that's right. And I don't know. I know a lot of people who've been involved in the judicial system, and people who've been sentenced to crimes, people who've been victims and had people sentenced to crimes. Rarely do you hear anyone say, yeah, that feels pretty good. That seems about right. I feel good about the punishment that was given to me, or I feel good about the punishment that was given to the person who. No one's typically saying like, yeah, hey, well done. You scratched that itch. Usually people are like, well, as it turns out, I just think it should have been more of this. So that's how the judicial system operates in all the other tens of thousands of cases that will be tried and sentenced across our system in the month of July, and probably hundreds of them on July 11th. So people aren't going to be happy about this. And that's probably how it should be. The justice system is not reasonable. I will say this to Patrick Time and other people who say this, because I have a bunch of friends that say this stuff. Oh, this conviction just got Trump reelected. If you want to make that argument, then you have to stop making the argument that they're interfering in politics, or say they're interfering in politics to Donald Trump's benefit.
Right.
But you can't make an argument that the Justice Department is trying to keep Trump from being elected president, and when he's prosecuted, that's going to cause him to be elected president.
That's right.
You just can't make both of those.
Right. Yeah. And
Trump just elected Donald Trump president. Then you need to say, keep them coming.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Biden Justice Department.
And so the Justice Department needs to stop interfering in trying to get Donald Trump elected, if that's what you think has happened. It's just so crazy to say that it is a left-wing conspiracy to prosecute Trump for the outcome of it electing Donald Trump.
Yeah.
It is truly...
Well, and to say that Biden is politicizing the justice system, if Biden were that type of person to use his power, don't you think he'd help out his son? Like, you think Trump would hesitate to preemptively pardon anybody?
Yeah. Yeah. You don't think Jared...
But Biden is letting this play out.
Like dad and his
listen,
father-in-law?
Can we talk about the fact that Jared Kushner's dad and father-in-law are both convicted criminals? Wow. Wow.
It's a tough family.
I mean, which is true of Ivanka as well. Her dad and her father-in-law are both the convicted criminals.
Boy, that is true. That is true. Well done.
Power couple.
Just mind-blowing there. Dan, you want to talk about Republican response?
Yeah, because I think this is probably the more troubling aspect of this, is the erosion of faith in our pillars of government. And you sort of expect some of this from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who said she's voting for Trump, quote, whether he is a free man or a prisoner of the Biden regime. She loves to use that language. She also posted the upside-down American flag that has come to symbolize the Stop the Steal movement Trump started with his allies around January 6th. But it gets more troubling when you have the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, on Fox and Friends, saying without evidence that Democrats are trying to hurt Trump, he thinks the Supreme Court should step in to resolve the case. Quote, the justices on the court, I know many of them personally, I think are deeply concerned about that as we are. So his buddies on the Supreme Court, he thinks, should step in and do something about this. It's just...
Yeah, look, and they do have a case before the Supreme Court on presidential immunity. When someone has been elected president, can they be tried for crimes that they've ever committed? They're making this argument, and that's a portion of the argument that's before the Supreme Court. I don't think that's going to go well for them either. The Supreme Court is not going to grant permanent immunity to a person who's been elected to any office in the United States. It would just, I mean, these guys are not diplomats from some other country that are granted freedom to act and not be prosecuted in the United States. I know I brought this up on previous conversations we've had. We do have a habit in this country of saying there are some people that we will not prosecute crimes. They have diplomatic immunity. It's the weirdest thing. A few years ago, there were, I think, people from Turkey who were here, abducted a guy or maybe killed somebody. And we're just like, we're getting on an airplane right now and you can't stop us. And they flew out because they have diplomatic immunity. Not sure we should all be comfortable with that and should probably figure that out. But the president probably shouldn't have that because of the light of the role of the presidency and the power the president has to commit crimes. So if you think that's far-fetched, one of the questions before the Supreme Court is in response to a question before a federal appeals court on this case, where the judge asked the attorney for Donald Trump, if Donald Trump orders SEAL Team 6 to execute his political rival while he's president, do you think that is something he should not be convicted of? And the lawyer said, It depends on if Congress impeaches the president for that or not.
That's a terrifying argument.
Literally the level at which judges are having to like push the question, what exactly are you suggesting here? And their answer is, well, pretty much that impeachment has to come first.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
It's
it's insane. This argument of this executive authority that these people believe in, this unitary executive, is just wild, completely wild idea. And that's what so many. And here's the thing, though: the Trump supporters I know, they don't want Joe Biden to have that privilege.
Right.
They don't want Joe Biden.
Doesn't it mean Joe Biden could
execution of a political rival? Of course not. That would be, to them, that would be horrible. I mean, in fact, they're saying Biden is weaponizing the Justice Department, and that should be a crime. Well, according to the very argument Trump is making as to why he shouldn't be charged with a crime, Joe Biden gets to do that all he wants, and it's not a problem. Truly, these folks, I just think, when your argument doesn't work for the other person who's president and only works for Donald Trump, and you admit that, you're really not taking seriously the fact that you're just caught up in a personal affair with Donald Trump that is guiding your thinking. Maybe you're not in a cult. Maybe you're just in love, because love causes people to do the most wild things.
The Republican leaders, from Mike Johnson to Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the whole lot of them, they should be ashamed of themselves. They really should be. Former Republican governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, who also ran for president, said his response was something along the lines of, wow, this is a really significant day for the country. Donald Trump has every right to appeal, but we've got to respect the decision of these 12 jurors and our justice system. That's the kind of response that in a non-bizarro kind of existence like we're in right now in our political world, that's the kind of response you would get. It's that measured, like, hey, listen, sometimes you can't win every game you play. You lose some, and you've got to take the L, take the loss. And live to fight another day. That is what we've seen from someone like Asa Hutchinson. Now, it's significant that he's the only person I can name who has had that response.
Yeah, right.
Because there's so few.
Right. Even the former governor of Indiana, who's now scrubbing his bio to not be listed as the vice president, has come out to say he can't support Donald Trump, not because Donald Trump is a convict who has chosen to violate the laws of the United States of America, but because he's not conservative enough. But either way, you could...
and not because he led chance of hang Mike Pence. Didn't defend him, but
he's not
more philosophical reasons.
A principle who he's not conservative enough.
That's right.
I will say this. I couldn't be happier that people who support Donald Trump and are hardworking Americans, really working harder than the rest of us, are giving their hard-earned money to Donald Trump. Give him all. Give him all you got. Empty your bank accounts. Send him all your money so he can pay his legal bills, pay the catering bills for the events that he's going to hold, and pocket the money that he stiffs the contractors who set up his stages. Send him all your money. And if Trump's hardworking Trump supporters, when you send him your money, don't act as if somehow that's going to get him elected. Because he's not spending the money on anything you would spend the money on if you're trying to win an election. You're spending the money on the things you have to spend the money on, trying to wrap all of your legal woes, including your $84 million penalty for defaming the person you sexually assaulted. He has to find a way to pay for all of that. So keep sending him your money and keep telling yourself, money means winning an election, while you're telling yourself that violating crimes that keep track of money that affects elections is a bad law. Keep telling yourself the more money he gets, the more likely he is to win, but we shouldn't have laws that have anything to do with where people's money comes from. Just keep living in both those worlds. But most importantly, and I'm on Donald Trump's text list. And by the way, I've signed up for a number of other groups, texts, and I use certain nomenclature when I sign up for them. Those have now turned into that same nomenclature response to how they reference me from Trump campaign donation seeking text messages. They are clearly sharing data, which is a crime. By the way, they're still doing it. They're going to keep doing it. And I hope that all of you Trump supporters who get those same text messages I get, just click every one of those donate buttons. Send him your
smash that donate button,
because he needs your money. How pathetic is it that the guy who said, I'm not going to be in anyone's pocket, I don't need anyone's money, I'll pay for the campaign myself, is begging you every single day to give him your hard-earned money. And if you're on retirement, or if you're in a federal pension program, keep giving him government's money right back. Just keep sending it right back to him. I know you didn't earn it. Of course you didn't earn it. It's not hard-earned money. It's given to you by the government because you're on the government dole. But just keep giving that money too. He made an investment in Amazon in 1996, and you risked $50, and it's now worth $10 million. You didn't work hard for it, but give all that money over to Don. He needs it. Just send him all your money and tell yourself there's a sign that people really support Donald Trump. It's remarkable to me.
Yeah.
The pattern of, you know how much money he's raised right now?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many people send love letters to criminals in prison? It's disturbing.
Yeah.
This is not a sign of healthy activity.
And the thing is, with an election like this, where it's two very known parties, two very known people, we don't need, there's not an ad buy that's going to sway anyone. Like, there's not a campaign stop that's going to be like, oh, that convinced the moms in the country to not vote for Biden. Like, everyone has pretty much made up their mind. And the things that can sway those handful of undecided voters are things like being criminally convicted 34 times. Like, there's no amount of donation that can scrub that.
No.
And Patrick, thanks for hanging out with us, Patrick. Really appreciate it. He mentions, will Biden make it through the DNC convention as the nominee? I think this goes to another difference between Republicans and Democrats in this cycle is we're not married to Biden. Like,
no.
If Biden
Most
bowed out,
Biden.
if Biden bowed out at the convention, we would be happy. Like,
fine. It'd be fine. If Trump bowed out, I'm sure you'd be happy too, Trump supporters. I mean, you'd be like, hey, I'm just glad the man's going to go spend his years enjoying himself. And, paying the $84 million in civil penalties that he owes to the person he sexually assaulted. But, he's still going to probably be enjoying himself. You know what Donald Trump won't be doing? Sending you text messages asking you to send him money so he can pay his lawyers with the money. As soon as he's not running for office, he's as broke as a $3 clock. So you think that guy wants to win the election or wants to not run for president again? You know what the best thing he could do?
Lose and run again.
Lose and run again. Lose and run. Just
Oh,
keep
yeah.
running.
Constant
Just
martyr.
What's he going to run for? What fundraising message is he going to send out if he wins the election? Because he started sending re-election emails and text messages immediately.
Yep.
If he were to win and the country were to fall into, well, I guess he could say, I'm going to run for a third term, and he'd probably fundraise on that. I take all that back. Of course he would. Of course he would. My apologies.
Listen, I know we're winding down, but Dr. Fauci yesterday before a congressional committee, no pun intended here, absolutely killing it.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Love that guy.
Total like Marjorie Taylor Greene attempted to humiliate him. Elise Stefanik attempted to humiliate him, and just
didn't go well.
Didn't go well.
Because he's just a good guy that's been doing good work for 40 years, and he's been trying to save people's lives for decades, and this is the person you're going to vilify.
Yeah. Here I think I've got it. No, it's not Elise Stefanik. It's Maliatakis from Staten Island. How much have you earned from royalties from pharma companies since the pandemic began? Fauci, 0. You're saying you didn't receive any of the $710 million in royalties? Fauci, only $122 for a monoclonal antibody that I made 25 years ago.
Wow.
So they think they've got this gotcha moment with Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
And there was this whole thing where Marjorie Taylor Greene refused to call him doctor.
Yeah.
And she's like, you shouldn't be a doctor, and I'm not going to call you that. And they had to tell her, like, you have to call him doctor.
Oh, so hilarious.
What would you live in where Fauci is not a doctor and Trump is not a felon? What world is this? Remarkable.
Oh, man.
Well, Doug, we know you have to get on Fox News here in a little bit, so we can probably wrap things up.
The Fox News people, so we'll share that one out, as they say, when the time comes. So from the soft, loving confines of Common Good Politics on the Common Good podcast to the fiery furnace of
heading into the lion's den. Hey, Alex, Patrick's Time, Peggy, Joanne. I'm trying to see who else jumped in today.
a little quiet in the chat, actually.
Hillary.
Yeah, Jim said hi.
Hey, Jim.
Squirrely Prepper.
Yeah. Thanks for being along for the ride. Patrick's Time. Thanks for the comments. We'll pray for you.
Well, we really do appreciate all you hanging out with us, and I think we'll see everybody next week. I think we're not on the road next Tuesday, so
we'll see you on the other side.
In theory, we'll be back here same time.
Vote Common Good.
.com. Just sneaking that in.
.com.
All right.